Ladies and gentlemen, our final speaker for the evening is our President, Christine Thomaidis, and she will be speaking on the subject, Spiritual Intelligence is the most important intelligence. Spiritual Intelligence is the most important intelligence, by Christine Thomaidis, and she will be interrogated by Thando Khumalo.
Just to let everybody know, we will be getting microphones in the future, so we don't all have to shout, and we've got a big room and noise at the back. What truly defines intelligence in the fast-paced world that we live in? Especially now that AI has entered the race. The definition, according to Donna Zohar, who first used the term spiritual intelligence in a paper in 1997, says that it is the ability to explore existential questions and to find purpose and meaning in life. There have been several definitions since then, but they're all much of a muchness. What is the significance of spiritual intelligence? It's the connection between our EQ and our IQ. Spiritual intelligence is the foundation of what drives us forward, enhances well-being and leadership, and helps us to make those difficult decisions in business that Frans was talking about. Now, for the purposes of this talk, I talk about three researchers. The first one, and I've summarized it all throughout the whole process. Steve Covey, I'm sure you all are aware, he wrote the book 7 and 8 Habits of Highly Effective People. So even though he didn't write a paper, he sold 40 to 50 million copies of his book, which he mentions in there as well. Donna Zohar, as I mentioned with the definition, she has also done extensive research. She's actually 82 at the moment, and you can see from the information, she has a variety of fields of disciplines that she studied in, as has Steve Covey, and the last one, David King. One thing that I did find interesting in all my research is that every single researcher individually, not just collectively, all of them who write papers on spiritual intelligence, they all have several disciplines themselves individually, so collectively there is a lot of research on this topic. And I thought to put this forward first, I mean, Professor David King, he's got a degree in psychology, statistical modeling, and a PhD in psychology. Physics and philosophy by Donna Zohar, as well as religion and psychology from Harvard. So we're talking about people who know what they're talking about. Professor David King, the reason why I'm talking about him more is because he put together a 24 assessment called SIRI, where he asks 24 questions. The questions that he asks are very similar to other people. Cindy Wigglesworth has a 21. I think Donna Zohar has another one. But they're all much of a muchness, all falling into the same line. And basically they all say the same. It impacts your health and your well-being tremendously. Okay, so now we've spoken about what is the background to spiritual intelligence. Spiritual intelligence elevates your IQ and your EQ. It is the foundation, it is the drive that moves you forward. We all know people who have a high IQ and maybe they're lacking in EQ. We have the other way around. Not necessarily somebody with a high EQ, but maybe somebody who runs on emotional energy. So that's why they say SQ is the foundation. It's the one that drives you. And having a holistic connection between all of them is very important in moving forward. And when I say spiritual intelligence, I don't mean religious. Because you can have religious people who are not spiritual, and you can have spiritual people who are not religious. These questions that have been asked in this research has been attended to by asking people from different organized faiths, as well as from people who have no faith at all and maybe just meditate, but they're actually atheists and they don't believe. So, knowing that this is the criteria and this is the research and the fact that it is the driving force, which I'll explain in a moment, we all know that leaders and all the top companies in the United States, all the top leaders, the underlying thread is high EQ. So you can imagine being driven by spiritual intelligence as well would make everybody just out of the ballpark. So how can we improve our spiritual intelligence? Well, first of all, which I'll hand out later, is asking the questions. By asking ourselves questions, raises our awareness. The two other main things is through meditation and mindfulness. Now, how an individual approaches meditation is personal. Some people could meditate reading scripture or poetry. You could meditate by being still, stopping your thoughts, being in control of your thoughts, creating a space with your emotional state. That is also part of meditation. So how you attend to that. But that is the main point of improving your spiritual intelligence and spending time reflecting. Regarding the Siri 24, he puts spiritual intelligence into 4 categories. The first category is spiritual, critical, existential thinking. What does that mean? Asking questions about life and death and your reality that you find yourself in. The second thing is personal meaning production. That means, do you have a purpose in your life? Do you have a value system? And once you put that into place, it's like having a purpose statement for your speeches. When you write a purpose statement for your speeches, all the points in your speech should flow. It's the same thing, have you found your purpose? So that's the second bit. The third bit is transcendental awareness. What does that mean? That means having a connection to non-material aspects of life. Connecting with people around you, not because of their status, because of their money, connecting to nature, and having awareness of these connections. And the last one is conscious state expansion. That means, and again, I'll use different terms because different people from different backgrounds, connecting to your Atman, connecting to your higher self, connecting to the universe, connecting to source, connecting to God. Can you move up that conscious state expansion to elevate yourself? And can you do it and be in control? That's what that is. And that's what the 24 questions does. It asks you several questions on each one. David King says to track your development, attend to the scoring, see where you line up, and then attend to it in 3 months' time. To conclude, spiritual intelligence complements IQ and EQ. It works together so that you can have the best lived life. I've shown you tools for growth, and it's basically the foundation for well-being. When all intelligences fail to help you, it is spiritual intelligence that rises up quietly. It rises up with extreme wisdom. Let's choose to elevate the spiritual intelligence within us so that our lives are not just lived, they are purpose-driven and led.
Please. Sorry, timekeeper's report, please.
Last time was also 7 minutes, and Christine did it in 8 minutes, 8 seconds.
Madam President.
He swear.
Yeah. When you're ready.
All right. Your last statement says when all intelligences fail, you help.
Yes.
your spiritual intelligence is what rises up.
Yes.
That is quite the statement. Please elaborate, because as much as you said that spirituality is not necessarily religious,
Yes.
that borders on the religious.
Once you start walking along the path, okay, what are your values? If you write down 3 to 5 of your own values that you hold dear to you, that says who you are, once you find what your purpose in life is, and you write your purpose statement, and you read that regularly, what happens is, when you make your decisions, your cognitive decisions, you are then guided through your life's values. Does that make sense?
Does?
Yeah. So it's not necessarily religion. It's when you start meditating, you quieten, which is one of the main things that you can actually heighten and lift up your spiritual intelligence. It quietens the thoughts. It stills the emotions, and then it leaves the space for guidance to happen along the lines of your purpose and your values.
Now, you mentioned also that it is a foundational intelligence.
Yes.
How is it drastically different from emotional intelligence?
And when I say foundational, like I said, it drives the others. Spiritual intelligence, as far as I am aware, is the only one that can't work on its own. So it has to work in alignment with spiritual intelligence and the IQ. It's like the foundation. You can have somebody who is emotionally intelligent but doesn't necessarily have insight as much as what you would have if you work on the wand quadrant, which is transcendental awareness. It gives you, from a spiritual perspective, which I'll answer you, that means discernment. So that's the word I would use, which is more of a spiritual word, but that would mean...
That also leans on IQ. Because to understand to have that discernment, to use the word that you used, comes with a level of IQ. And then you would use your EQ to assess the situation and move forward from there. I'm still not understanding how SQ is more important or is foundational.
Okay. If you look at your IQ, your IQ is about problem solving, critical thinking, breaking things down. Once you start focusing on your spiritual intelligence as a foundational one, it helps give you different insights. That's the purpose, and that's what the research has found. So it's complementary. You can work with your IQ and have a high IQ, and not necessarily even have a high EQ or an SQ. And the same with EQ. But SQ works with both, because it's the driver.
Last one.
Okay. It's that driving that I'm jelling with.
You're jelling with the driving voice. And I'm like this, I'm driving.
So you have these, let's say the three, right? EQ, IQ, SQ. EQ is measurable to a certain extent. IQ also measurable, whereas with SQ, it can sometimes fall into the wishy-washy. So how do you explain to someone who's not spiritual, how do you measure that? How do you say it's foundational when they don't meditate, they don't think of the purpose of their life from a spiritual perspective?
You don't have to, sorry to interrupt, you don't have to look at your life from a spiritual perspective. It's not about finding the purpose of your life from a spiritual perspective. Is that, have you found your purpose in life? Full stop. And once you start asking yourselves, so this is about the inner journey, whether you want to think it's religious or whatever, it's the inner journey. So ask yourself, and by questioning yourself, where am I? Do I have, what are my values? Have you thought about what are your main values? Okay, what are your main values? What is your purpose of life? Not your spiritual purpose, your purpose in life.
No, sorry. You can attack her afterwards. Thank you, Christine. Thank you.